Coming up in today's newscast, Russia announces the shipment of up to 4 S-300 missile defense systems to Syria. World leaders comment on Middle East peace at the United Nations General Assembly, and get ready for the second ever OFF annual design festival in Tel Aviv. Reports now confirm that following the downing of a Russian aircraft last week, Russia will supply the Syrian Assad regime with up to 4 S-300 air defense missile systems within the coming weeks, all in order to better protect against future incursions. The Russian Kommersant News added that the number of systems may increase over time as well. Further, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced that the Russian military would also aid Syria in electronic warfare, such as jamming enemy satellites and radar equipment. Speaking with Russian President Putin on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu urged not to escalate tensions in the region, arguing that Russia was, quote, transferring advanced weapons systems into irresponsible hands, end quote. That being said, the addition of the S-300 defense systems didn't seem to faze anyone in Israel in terms of continuing operations in Syria. Many Israeli officials have already stated that they will continue to do whatever is necessary to prevent Iranian arms and proxy forces from gaining footholds on Israel's border. Israeli Intelligence Minister Israel Katz chimed in, saying that, quote, if the Iranian undermining doesn't stop, Israel will be forced to continue doing everything possible to defend itself, end quote. And just prior to boarding his jet to New York for the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister Netanyahu also made clear that no attempts to hurt Israeli interests or sovereignty in the region would be tolerated.
בשלוש השנים האחרונות ישראל נחלה הצלחה גדולה מאוד במניעת ההתבססות הצבאית האיראנית בסוריה, בניסיונות של איראן להעביר נשק קטלני לחיזבאללה בלבנון. אנחנו נמשיך לפעול למניעת ההתבססות הצבאית האיראנית בסוריה, ואנחנו נמשיך בתיאום הביטחוני בין צה"ל לצבא רוסיה. אני סיכמתי עם הנשיא פוטין שצוותי העבודה של צה"ל והצבא הרוסי ייפגשו בזמן הקרוב למען המטרה הזאת.
Speaking of the United Nations General Assembly, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Middle East in general again took center stage as United States President Trump, Egyptian President Sisi, and many others delivered their speeches. President Trump, speaking now to the Assembly for the second time, opened his speech with statements about his administration's accomplishments, a statement received with laughter by the General Assembly.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
But as he continued, he again took a serious tone with respect to Iranian behaviors and sponsorship of terrorism, trade issues, and more. However, apart from imploring the world to join the United States in sanctioning the aggressive Ayatollah regime, Trump also defended his foreign policy and commitment to peace and stability with regards to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He defended actions like moving the embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing it as Israel's capital, as well as defunding UNRWH and cutting ties with the Palestinian Authority.
The United States is committed to a future of peace and stability in the region, including peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. That aim is advanced, not harmed, by acknowledging the obvious facts. America's policy of principled realism means we will not be held hostage to old dogmas, discredited ideologies, and so-called experts who have been proven wrong over the years, time and time again. This is true not only in matters of peace, but in matters of prosperity. We believe that trade must be fair and reciprocal.
But most other world leaders who spoke on Tuesday, including French President Emmanuel Macron, all spoke out against the United States' unilateralism and in favor of a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 borders and with Jerusalem as a shared capital.
Qu'est-ce qui permettra de régler la crise entre Israël et la Palestine? à coup sûr. Pas des initiatives unilatérales, ni le fait d'ignorer les droits légitimes des Palestiniens pour obtenir une paix durable, ni de sous-estimer le droit légitime des Israéliens à leur sécurité. Il n'y a pas d'alternative crédible à la solution de deux États vivant côte à côte en paix et en sécurité, avec Jérusalem pour capitale.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said, quote, "The terms of reference of this just solution and the parameters of a final settlement are well known. What is required is political will to resume negotiations and achieve a settlement in accordance with these parameters," end quote. Jordanian King Abdullah II also chimed in, saying that only a two-state solution based on, quote, "international law and relevant UN resolutions can meet the needs of both sides," end quote. Israeli officials, on the other hand, backed the United States, with leaders like Netanyahu and Defense Minister Lieberman calling Trump's speech impressive, and that they hoped world leaders would, quote, "listen and internalize" the United States president's words. Following the United States' announcement in August that Washington was ending all funding to Palestinian aid organization UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency has been clamoring to collect the missing funds from other donor countries. International outcry against the United States' callousness has erupted, with Palestinian schools remaining shuttered, UNRWA staff out of work, and millions of Palestinians across multiple countries now living in a state of limbo. But a closer look at UNRWA's finances and conversations with its remaining 67 donor countries shows that even after the United States pulled its funding, UNRWA was taking in roughly $1 billion. So the question is, where's the money? Joining me now with more is Director of the Israel Resource News Agency, David Bedin. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's very important to clarify what happened here. Last January, Trump cut $65 million from UNRWA.
Half of that contribution for that.
That's right. It amounted to 5% of the UNRWA budget.
65 million was 5%.
That was it. Now, UNRWA then hired a public relations firm and spread around the whole world that the United States had chopped all the money, which they didn't do until August, and that UNRWA was bereft of funds. For the next 5 months, even now, UNRWA has been saying that the U.S. cut of funding has affected them to the extent that they can't have services. On June 25th, UNRWA conducted a press conference. We are bereft of funds. So what did our agency do? We have also the Center for Near East Policy Research. We went to all the donor nations, all 67 donor nations. Did you take back the money? Did you stop the money? And the answer we got from 44 nations that were continuing the money, and we made a graph. Not only did UNRWA have $1 billion as of January 1st, but another $1 billion had come in and by the time they had their press conference on June 25, they were sitting on $1 billion in cash. There's $1 billion missing from UNRWA. Where is it?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. This is not a small amount of money.
No.
This is not a statistical error. Now, $1 billion they can't account for, and to this day, their PR firm, Marathon Strategies, it would be wonderful to interview them also. They don't want to talk so much, but Marathon Strategies, planting in every country in the world, in all the media, that there are children starving in Gaza, that UNRWA cannot function because of the U.S. cutbacks. But they already found the replacement countries, Germany, UK.
Yeah, the other
Saudi
donor
Arabia.
countries kind of picked up the slack already.
Immediately. Back in January they picked it up, and after August they picked it up. Now, they're engaging in a very aggressive campaign to bring in money. We have checked, our staff has checked, that yes, they're holding back salaries, they're holding back money.
So what they say about the crisis that, the crisis that has resulted of UNRWA being bereft of funds is real, but except they're not bereft of funds.
They're not bereft of funds at all. All the donor nations are saying we are giving the money as increasing the money, and the nations that are increasing the money are having a session at the United Nations on Thursday evening to discuss this. Now, what's important to understand, this has nothing to do with the U.S. Lack of funds, and it has nothing to do with any big the cutback in August. It has everything to do with lack of transparency, with lack of accountability of UNRWA funds, and the time has come for the donor nations to ask for that accountability. Incidentally, the people in Gaza are not stupid. They understand that there's something going on here.
Well, and so there's the big question, too, is you spoke to 67 other countries, 44 of which it sounds responded.
We responded, yes.
Right. So of the 44 countries, I read in the article that you wrote, and you said, these are not dummies. They're not stupid. So why are they allowing this campaign, this PR campaign from UNRWA to continue publicly without saying anything?
This has been a tradition of not challenging UNRWA. not challenging UNRWA credibility, not challenging UNRWA accountability, and not asking for the books, not asking to see what happened. The medical services being cut. We know from 34 nations giving the medical services. We also know that there's other things going on UNRWA does. We have reported for the last 12 years about the Al-Qutla clubs, the Hamas military training clubs with weapons, with live weapons, which are being supplied to the kids in UNRWA facilities. We've shown it, we've proven it, we've had this, and all the donor countries have acknowledged that they know about it, but this is not being challenged. And I don't know of any of my fellow reporters challenging. So we are challenging it. We're asking. We've met
Where's
with
that $1 billion?
Well, it's $1 billion which is missing. UNRWA can't account for it, except to say it's because of the United States 5% cut back then in January, and the 33% cut in of UNRWA funds in August. So there's something wrong. There's something rotten in UNRWA. There's something that has to be question, and I want to say I'm also a social work professional. The lack of when a humanitarian agency can't account for its funds and it's serving 5.2 million people, many of whom shouldn't be there, because why keep people in refugee facilities for 70 years? This is something not right. And
I mean, so there are a lot of problems with UNRWA, but this is, I mean, this one's a big one.
Well, this is the biggest we've seen in 30 years of covering UNRWA. This is the biggest one we've seen, and they're orchestrating it so beautifully. You see, they take the little kids, they put them out, they try to say they're starting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful. It's Pallywood. You know, it's the same thing that we've heard.
It's worse than Pallywood because this is UN wood, and it's going to be discussed at the UN tomorrow. My question: we met with one of the major ambassadors. And he was shocked to see what we brought to his attention. My question is: will the other ambassadors, who of the other donor nations that are going to be discussing this at the UN, will they ask these questions? Well,
they have their time. They have their moment right now at the UNGA in New York, and hopefully they will. I hope that you keep us, abreast of the situation.
Well, you can look at our website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com. We have there the list of the donor nations. We have our new films.
It's all there in black
of the
and white.
Military training, and all we have our full reports on UNRWA update. And UNRWA called us their greatest enemy. Okay, if we're the greatest public enemy, fine. All we're trying to do is put out the truth, put out issues having to do with accountability, transparency, and to wake up the world of journalism, to wake up the humanitarian world, and to wake up the world of social work to ask questions about this.
All right, David Bedin, thank you very much
for
coming in. The UK Labour Party has just held their annual party conference in Liverpool, which brought together hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters who waved Palestinian flags and chanted "Free Palestine." This while joining together for a rare debate in support of an immediate suspension of arms sales to Israel. And in fact, on Tuesday, the UK's main opposition Labour Party passed a motion that harshly criticized Israel and pledged to make several stark changes if Israel rises to more power. Delegates voted to admonish Israel's force against violent riots in the Gaza border, support more UK funding for the Palestinian refugee agency UNRWA, and freeze all British arms sales to Israel. The vote against Israel was put on the table by delegate and pro-Palestinian Corbyn supporter Colin Monaghan, who condemned United States President Trump's decision to defund UNRWA. And prior, on Sunday, Corbyn refused to offer an apology or express any remorse for several incidents in which he was accused of being blatantly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. These included his attendance at a memorial for Palestinian terrorists, as well as his refusal to fully adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. Earlier this month, Corbyn undermined the alliance's definition by claiming that he's not being anti-Semitic by calling Israel a racist endeavor. Yet British Labour Party politician Emily Thornberry told delegates that anti-Semites in the party were using the Palestinian issue to promote hatred and racism, and she asked them to be removed from the Labour Party altogether. She said, quote, "There are some sickening individuals in the fringes of our movement who use our legitimate support for Palestine as a cloak and a cover for their despicable hatred of Jewish people and their desire to see Israel destroyed," end quote. But the tense debate took place as almost 300 Israeli citizens, including artists, academics, and left-wing members of the Knesset, signed a letter supporting Corbyn and the Labour Party, writing that, quote, "Corbyn has been subjected to sustained attacks for his supposed friendliness to anti-Semitism. We reject the substance of these accusations completely," end quote. Still, the ongoing crisis over anti-Semitism in the Labour Party has caused great fears among the Jewish citizens of the UK over their future in the country. A recent poll stated that if Corbyn becomes Prime Minister, 40% of Jewish citizens would seriously consider emigrating out of the country. A man suspected of killing an Israeli man in a deadly hit-and-run accident in Jerusalem on Sunday night has been taken into custody. The driver was identified as 50-year-old Julio de la Guardia, a Spanish journalist who has been working in Israel for the past several years. Authorities say he was driving while intoxicated, fled the scene after hitting the victim, and was arrested by police in Mount Scopus 90 minutes later. A breathalyzer test showed that LaGuardia had 3 times the legal alcohol limit, and LaGuardia appeared at the Jerusalem District Court on Tuesday to confess to running over the victim while inebriated. The victim was Chaim Tukachinsky, a 31-year-old ultra-Orthodox pianist, composer, and conductor living in Jerusalem. He was also a graduate of the Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance. But Tukachinsky was walking home from the Western Wall on the first night of Sukkot when he was hit by LaGuardia in Jerusalem's Paris Square. He was laid to rest on Tuesday. Now, the Lower Jerusalem court originally ruled that LaGuardia could remain under house arrest, but it was discovered that the journalist would spend house arrest at the home of the Spanish consul. So at the request of the police, the district court overturned that decision, and the case will resume on Thursday. You may not know this, but a common problem we have when navigating in public spaces or meeting friends at an exact location is that traditional mapping and GPS satellites simply don't work indoors. But don't fret, the next step in real-time navigation is here, and here to tell us all about it is founder and CEO of Navin, Shai Ronen. Shai, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, so what differentiates Navin from other GPS or navigational tools?
The idea is to cover the places without GPS, namely inside buildings, and to give a seamless navigation experience, turn by turn, door to door, from the building, outside, whether to get your car, and so on and so forth.
So it'll convert, in terms of navigation, it'll kind of transfer from GPS to Navin back to GPS seamlessly?
Seamlessly. On a seamless map, so you get a very robust solution. Whether you are looking for a gate in an airport, you can just find your friends, find the clinic, on the hospital, etc.
So this is, normally when you'd say, okay, let's pop in an address or something, now you can say, put a pin and it's exact.
Right. And it's important for us to emphasize that it's based on traffic, it's based on community, just like Waze and Move It, the more traffic we have, the more places.
Mapping.
Exactly.
I see. All right, so, okay, yeah, exactly. So, it works with crowd mapping, which is amazing. So how does that work exactly?
So the main problem that we identified is that it's very hard to draw maps out of smartphones without investing a lot of thought, and we did so. We have some patents. We implemented a new approach that clears all the noises from the smartphone motion sensors, and though this is how we are able to learn the geometry of the building and later on to map and navigate to turn by turn.
That's incredible. All right, so first of all, where is this available and how do we get it?
It's a beta. It's available in a few places in Tel Aviv. You should go online to Google Play and download it. It's called Navin.
Is it available on iPhone as well?
Not right now. This is the next phase.
Sure. All right. Well, that's amazing. What's next for Navin? What other kind of things are you adding to this? Is this because you said this is a beta, so kind of where do you see this going?
We see it as a major platform. It's a single application that solves all the hassle of how to get to places simply by taking you door to door wherever you are. We are looking at a vision of going to many cities worldwide and to rely on the crowd wisdom and the community in order to spread it everywhere.
All right. Well, it seems incredible. I can't wait to download it as soon as it comes out on iPhone, unfortunately. But I'll be waiting for the day. Shai, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
You've done something right when the tickets to a first ever event sell out. Well, that's exactly what happened last year for the first ever Off Tel Aviv Design Festival. And thankfully this year, the festival is set to be double in size. Al TV's Emmanuel Kadosh has all the details.
Thanks, Aaron. Well, I couldn't make it last year to the first Off Design Festival. I'm eagerly waiting to hear back and see if I got tickets to this year's. So just a little background for all you who haven't heard of the festival before.
Please.
The Off Festival began over 17 years ago in Barcelona, Spain, in an effort to join talent, share creativity, and inspire other young artists. I just have to mention really quickly that Off, we haven't figured out what the meaning of it is. There's no set meaning as to what OFFF means.
There's no like official kind of
abbreviation. No, it's not an abbreviation to anything. No.
All right. Well, so what can we expect to see at this strangely named festival.
All right, well, like I mentioned before, this year's festival is expected to be double the size of last year's. It's a 2-day series of conferences, workshops, performances, and activities, but I think the core part, obviously, is that it's a type of, meeting point for collaborations for different artists from around the world. There are set to be more than 20 international speakers from the worlds of graphic design, moving image, illustration, and creative. All the speaker internationals and locals are considered to be highly regarded and from some of the most well-known studios.
All right, so are there any speakers that we might recognize then?
Maybe not by name, but most definitely by their works. The head of Pentagram, which is the international studio behind some of the world's most famous visual identities like MasterCard, I'm sure you've heard of, Windows, I'm sure you've heard of, the MoMA, Verizon, and I'm sure you can imagine so much more. And then there's Imaginary Forces, which is a design studio and production company whose clients include companies like Netflix and HBO. Now, all these speakers, yeah, exactly. Now all these speakers are there to discuss their career paths, the process and design ideas, just a bit about how they got to where they are. And, I think this is just going to be so inspiring and so educational for talent all over the world.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to get tickets to this festival, first off.
For sure.
Yeah, but how did it go from Barcelona to Tel Aviv?
Right, so I thought the same thing in the beginning, and then you realize that Tel Aviv, we know this, it's considered to be one of the most creative, innovative, and inspiring cities to be in, so they should be having it here, if you ask me. Our design schools are some of the absolute best in the world. We are the startup nation, and those two qualities combined make us the perfect, spot for this type of collaborative festival where we can learn from other people from all over the world, and they can learn from us. Local artists and creators have the opportunity to be brought onto a dignified global stage and create some opportunities to connect with talent from all over the world.
All right, so we will most definitely have to work on getting the ILTV team tickets to this amazing
so.
festival. Thanks for your report, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
It's a great week for Israeli medical companies as 2 major deals have just been announced. First, Israel's MediWound Ltd biotech firm has just received a new contract for roughly $43 million in order to continue developing their incredible burn treatments. And second, Medtronic, a Dublin-based medical technology firm, acquired Israeli medical tech company Mazor Robotics for $1.64 billion. The companies made the announcement late Thursday and are very excited for what is to come in the future of surgical robotics and spinal surgery technology. Medtronic already has 11% stake in Mazor, but is now set to acquire the shares they do not already own. The boards of directors of both companies have unanimously approved the transaction, and the deal is set to close by the end of January 2019. The technology of Mazor was created by Moshe Shocham, a medical engineer from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. He created a technology that enabled spinal surgery to go from a freehand procedure to an accurate and cutting-edge guided procedure using robotics. And this technology was used in the world's first dual robotic surgery performed at Hadassah Hospital in Kerem in Jerusalem on April 2017. But piggybacking on Mazor's achievements, this buyout agreement is Medtronic's effort at becoming a leader in spinal surgery using guided robotics, and it's the largest amount paid in history for any Israeli company within the medical sector. Medtronic's acquisition of Mazor Robotics is the $4th billion-dollar deal for an Israeli company in 2018, though. In August, global beverage giant Pepsi announced it was buying SodaStream for $3.2 billion, following the May acquisition of Frutarom for $7 billion by American multinational IFF, or International Flavors and Fragrance. Then, 2 months prior, there was the purchase of Orbotech by California KLA Tencor Corporation for $3.4 billion. As for MediWound, the United States Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, has approved a new contract of $43 million so that, among other things, the Israeli Ltd can continue developing a gel based on pineapple enzymes. The gel is used in the treatment of burns, specifically for injuries caused by mustard gas or other mass casualty events, and this latest contract is in addition to the $132 million in funding that BARDA has already paid to MediWound. But all in all, Israeli startups and high-tech companies were sold for $6.22 billion in just the first half of 2018 alone. Not bad for a state about the size of New Jersey. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is mehandes, which is an engineer. A medical mehandes, or engineer from the Technion, created a technology that enables spinal surgery using robotics. And handasa, or engineering of some kind, is used in practically every other field from medicine to design and electronics as well. So if you're interested in being a mehandes or engineer, remember you're in very good company. And if not, that's fine too. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear and warm with a low of 72 or 22 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect more sunny skies and another slight rise in temperatures. The high will be around 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.